Very good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to this 98th episode of the Together for Education webinars brought to you by Notebook. Over a year ago, in April 2020, when this pandemic had just started sweeping across the country, schools were shutting down. But schooling had to go on, and school teachers, more than ever, need to unite, rack their brains together to find innovative solutions to the new problems that they were facing every day. We at Notebook considered it our duty to put together a series of webinars called Together for Education, where the objective was to form a community of educators who can help each other tide over these difficult times. Little did we know that more than a year later, I would be welcoming you to the 98th episode. The only reason, the only fuel that Together for Education has in moving forward and growing is your love and support. And for that, we thank each and every one of you. Over the weeks, we have discussed a myriad set of topics. We have gone from extremely curricular topics like NEP, the new set of rules, art integrated education, to more co-curricular ones like sports, games, theater, to extremely esoteric ones like leadership, resilience. And we have also discussed a host of topics, but mostly we have spoken about our middle school, senior school, and senior secondary school students. Today, for the first time, we look at them a little younger. We talk about the formative years. The young children, early childhood children who are getting into school for the first time. How do we prepare them for a world that has changed absolutely in just the last 24 months? Today, to discuss this topic, we have a fantastic set of speakers for you, and it is my privilege to introduce to you the first speaker, Mr. Philip Barrett. Mr. Barrett retired as the Deputy Headmaster from the illustrious Doon School in Dehradun after 44 years of serving in education across various institutions. Mr. Barrett served the Doon School as Housemaster, Head of Department, Dean of Activities, Dean of Student Welfare, Deputy Headmaster, Second Master, and Acting Headmaster with great distinction. He also carried out a visioning exercise for the Doon School in the year 2011 through an in-depth study of a number of British public schools and various schools in the US. Mr. Barrett qualified as a leadership trainer at Wellington College, UK in the year 2000. He is also an athlete, an adventurer, and a naturalist, and we at Notebook are privileged to have him as a senior advisor. Sir, over to you.
Thank you very much, Shubayu, for that introduction, and a very good evening to you, Achin, Abhishek, Meghna, everybody at Notebook in Calcutta. Also our esteemed panelists, Dr. Gupta and Mr. Mahajan, and all those wonderful people who have tuned in this evening. When I heard about this topic, I got extremely nostalgic, and I did a look back over my formative years. And much of my talk today will be a reminiscing of those lovely days that I had as a kid. Somewhere in the Bible, it says that you cannot enter the kingdom of heaven till you become a child again. And I think most of life is a pining for that lost childhood. For parents, this is the most important and often most worrying time as they watch and see that their kids pass through the various growth, cognitive, and social and emotional milestones at the right times. And if things are not handled well at this stage, they can affect the child for life. 85% of our brains are developed in the first 5 years if given good care and love. And this sees us through this very dependent and vulnerable stage into future life. Don't we all remember those beautiful years when all we did was play? We ate and messed up everything. And we had the adults running behind us, cleaning after us, feeding us, and telling us how cute we were, despite all the tantrums and those endless questions we asked. We played in water and sand, cuddled our pets. We never went to school. And yet scientists say it is the fastest learning phase in our lives. We saw and touched and took in everything. And we were free to explore. We knew no dangers and we knew no limits. I remember I grew up, my early years were in Delhi, Allahabad and Lucknow. These were very hot towns. And my granddad was a great believer that children needed to grow up with animals. So we had dogs, and we had stray dogs, and we had cats. And in those days, what was entertainment? We had no TV and those sort of things. So the bhalu wala came into the house, and the monkey wala came into the house, and the ghoda wala came into the house. The snake charmer came into the house. And we spent the entire day either swimming in the ponds or on the garden swing, eating and romping in the garden, and taking everything through our senses. The scent of the sweet peas, the Raat Ki Rani, and other plants, the color of the candy floss wala, all his candy, my mother's flowery dresses. And we felt the hot afternoon sun into our skins, the taste of mangoes in summer, and the call of the koel at night, and the twanging of the cotton beaters who came around to prepare the quilts for winter. These are all the sensory aspects of that live with me all my life. I remember the stories of the forest and fantasy narrated to me by my grandfather before I slept. And even the smell of his pipe tobacco still hovers, around me. I spent so many lovely hours with my toys and my tricycles. And unlike children of today, we never had those sophisticated toys that one can go and buy in Hamleys. For us, it was just mud and water and swings and tires. And all the rest that we needed, we fabricated from tubes, rubber, old packets. And while the Legos and other branded toys are great, they somehow remove the creativity that we had as we were growing up in our formative years. It is a period of intense sensory learning without fear and doubt. And we learned so fast that later on, when we went to school, by contrast, all our learning seemed to be, coming to an end. The fun of learning came to an end. We learned every day so fast, so many things that never again is there going to be such an intellectual spurt in our lives. And we took everything in through our senses. We tasted it, we touched it, we smelt it. And when we look at the formative years we had and compare it to some of the sad plight of the children, not only in our own country, in the poverty-stricken areas, but in the war zones of the world, the famines, and currently in Palestine, and the flood situation, and in orphanages, juvenile homes, broken homes, children from traumatized backgrounds where poverty, malnutrition, lack of medical care, and all forms of abuse are there for them. Child labor, is rampant in third world countries. And yet how lucky we were and how lucky many of our children are. Now, the early years from about birth to 7, some psychiatrists say 5, some say 12, are the formative years. And this lays the foundation for many of the qualities, traumas, values, behavior, and characteristics we show in later life. This is the period of the most rapid cognitive, social, emotional, and physical development. And the most important activity that we were involved with is play. This period calls for the best teachers. This is the important thing. In most countries like Finland and other Scandinavian countries, Australia, the best, the brightest brains get into junior school teaching. In fact, play, that's so important that I just mentioned, should continue all our lives. But sadly, it doesn't. And once we get to school and exams and colleges and jobs and making money looms heavy on us, all play goes out of the window. And then the health problems and health issues and emotional issues take over. Preschoolers acquire their skills while singing, playing, observing, listening, interacting, which gives them the base on which further learning, later learning like mathematics, speaking skills, and development, later development takes place. They learn school readiness skills, working with others, understanding routine, and following rules. Now, in the cognitive skill area, they ask questions, they solve problems, there's visual discrimination issues, there's matching and comparing, they have sorting out things, organizing stuff, understanding fact from fiction, understanding cause and effect. These are the simple skills that I call the I skills. Then the next thing is social and emotional development. This is expressing emotion in the right way, communicating likes and dislikes, building friendships, building confidence, and social development skills, which I call the V skills. Then there is speech and language, which involves reading, phonetics, drawing, writing, communicating, telling stories, speaking and participating in conversations, asking questions, describing things, adding detail, speaking in complete sentences. Then there's the fine motor skills, which the kids learn through brushing of their teeth, washing hands, dressing, paper tearing, cutting, sticking, clay modeling. And there's the gross motor skill, the larger motor skills like balance, exercise, coordination, trampolining, kicking, throwing, climbing ladders, swimming. Now, this is a difficult and often nerve-wracking time for parents as kids are messy and keep shifting from one activity to the other, leaving the room in a mess, asking questions, wanting stories, wanting to dance and sing, copying the ads they see, reading billboard signs, scribbling on walls, taking things apart and not being able to put them together. And underlying all this is the belief that they are loved by someone at home who's there to watch over them. But all this is a part of childhood, and we've got to go through this without the trauma. Otherwise, the rest of life is affected. Now, in the field of developmental psychology, there are only three people I really love to read, and they're the masters of developmental psychology. One is, of course, Erik Erikson. One is a gentleman called Kohlberg, and of course, Jean Piaget. I want to just take you through some of the important things that Erik Erikson has said on the stages of the formative years. Stage one is trust versus mistrust. This is the stage where the child is dependent on his caregiver, parents, for all physical and emotional needs. This stage, the child learns to trust because he depends on his parents. Feeling safe and secure is very important for later life. But when this is missing, what develops is anxiety, mistrust, and fear. This is between birth and about 18 months. Stage two is from 18 months to 3 years, called autonomy versus shame and doubt. This is the stage when the toddler can do things for himself, like putting on shoes, even if they are on the wrong feet. We should allow them to do this, not always correct them. He may have or she may have food preferences. So give them the space to choose, practice autonomy. Even over-controlling of potty functions would be a thwarting of their autonomy. Children who come through this stage with flying colors will believe in themselves and feel secure in their abilities. Children who are not given a chance to assert themselves within limits will always battle with the fear of inadequacy and self-doubt. And then the third stage is from 3 to 5. We call it the initiative versus guilt stage. At least Erikson calls it. These are the preschool years. Children interact socially and play with others. They learn that they can take the initiative and control what happens. Now, we need to encourage the child to plan, achieve goals, and to take responsibility by making sure they have the opportunity to interact with others. They need to explore the world within their set limits, within the limits we set for them. Now, here's when the child starts asking a lot of questions. And these questions need to be answered if you want to invest in a child's positive self-image. Through both interacting with others socially and through play, the child develops confidence and learns to enjoy with a sense of purpose. But if parents are too controlling and don't support their child in the decisions they make, the child may not be equipped to take initiative, may lack ambition, and could be filled with guilt. Overpowering feelings of guilt can prevent the child from interacting with others and deter creativity later in life. And of course, the last stage is the 5 to 12 stage, which is called the industry versus inferiority stage. This is the elementary school stage where they make new friends and find new circle of influence. This is the stage when comparisons are often made by parents between two children. If they decide that they're not doing well scholastically on the sports field or in the arts, children develop feelings of, opposite of pride and accomplishment. We notice that if a child struggles in a certain area, they look for another area in which to shine. But when the child succeeds, they feel industrious and they believe that they can set goals. If, however, children meet up with repeated negative experiences at home and inside and in society, they develop feelings of inferiority. I want to just end by saying, to raise successful children, we need to make the formative years count. Kids need a good head start. All children learn through experience, exploration, and role modeling. So the best that we as children, as parents and teachers can do is to give them the richest possible experience of the physical world, where their lives are enriched by new experiences. And they have the freedom to explore and have good mentors to copy. Other things that parents can do is give them the best possible healthcare, enroll them in the best possible school, create the best home environment, get them involved with people and community, with friends, family, especially grandparents, and give them positive reinforcement and unconditional love. And with that, Subayu, I'm going to call it a day. I hope this has set the floor for the experts to take over. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you for taking us to that wonderful journey through your childhood. In a way, Notebook is in its formative years, and you are the elders who are guiding it on the right path. For that, we thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, it is now time to welcome our second speaker. Our second speaker today is Achin Bhattacharya. Achin is the founder and CEO at Notebook. A chartered accountant by training, Achin was a director at Deloitte prior to starting Notebook. He has worked in India and abroad in various senior capacities in GE, PwC, KPMG, and Deloitte. He is a fellow of the ICAI and a member of CPA Australia, and also the recipient of the prestigious Indian Achievers Award. Achin is an avid reader and a passionate traveler with keen interests in economics, history, literature, and philosophy. He is a regular speaker at various forums and chambers of commerce, and also contributes articles to numerous publications regularly. He is also on the board of some of the most renowned corporates and contributes significantly to their brand strategies. Achin, over to you.
Good evening, everyone. Shubhaya, am I audible?
Yeah, Achin, loud and clear.
Okay, and visible as well, right?
Yep, perfectly.
I welcome all of you again to today's session on a topic, the importance of which is being acknowledged more and more with each passing day. Now, all humans strive for knowledge by nature. The opening sentence of one of the most famous books in Western civilization, Aristotle's Metaphysics, explicitly speaks about men and knowledge, and the implicity about its author as well. Taking a clue from that, if we go a step further into today's topic. Now, Birdseye has given a very, I'll say, very beautiful perspective into the issue. Considering the fact that we have a great panel today, a very eminent panel, I'm sure they're going to share their insights as an educator, as educators with decades of experience, wealth of experience. So I'll take a more holistic view on the topic and discuss about formative years, mainly from the perspective of parents, coming to the bonding between parents and child, which again is a very, very important issue. Now, if you look at the science behind a baby's brain, now science has proved it time and again that a child's DNA is not his or her destiny. Parents are at the helm, guiding its course. The truth is that nature and nurture are in a delicate dance akin to, Fred and Ginger's famous choreography. If I remember, if one goes too fast, the other one fails. Science tells us that early childhood experiences actually have the capacity to structure and alter the brain. That means parents just don't supply a child's DNA. they also shape it. This is very important. And it's only by wielding that power a child will activate his or her full potential. It's like being a gene therapist, manipulating and guiding a child's genetic makeup based on experiences they create for him or her. So imagine the kind of power experiences have, and the kind of power and the kind of role parents have in terms of shaping these experiences. Now, if I compare this, it's like a child's genes may be a blueprint, but that's still only a two-dimensional potential mock-up of what will be a three-dimensional person. And as I was telling you, that old argument of nature versus nurture has been settled. And the truth is that both have equal influence. Nature may supply the genes, but those genes express themselves in reaction to stimulation from the environment that parents create and control. And not only that, I guess their presence, parents' presence, and also we are referring to the ambience they create. This actively determine, as to which of these child genes are expressed. A baby's brain, and Birds are also referring to various stages of growth. A baby's brain builds and grows in response to the stimulation it receives, which means that, say, each and every one of our physical and emotional experiences affects the biological development of the brain. Now, it's a lot of responsibility and a lot of power as well. And regrettably, far too many parents aren't aware of just how much influence they actually will. Now, science tells us a baby is born with approximately 100 billion neurons and over 50 trillion synapses. This may seem like a lot, but it's only a fraction of the neural connections that he or she will develop, which is more than 1,000 trillion in the first year alone. Thus, out of a baby's 24,000 genes, 12,000 of them establish these neural connections in the brain, which designate how the central nervous system will be created and will function. Now, however, we were referring to these 12,000 genes aren't nearly enough to activate all the neural connections. Therefore, it is the baby's heightened experiences. Again, we come back to the word experiences and the role, vital role that they play. Now, when we say experiences, both emotional as well as physical, that specify and determine those connections, because the brain is highly efficient. It actually dumps unused neurons while strengthening those used consistently. Now, this particular process is called synaptic pruning. It allows a child's brain to develop correctly. Thus, stimulation enhances a connection, and pruning discards what is not being used. Thus, this process of synaptic pruning, discarding what is not being used, this extends over lifetime, but it is most active during early childhood. It means that every experience counts. Every experience, every touch, sight, smell, and interaction positively or negatively affects the wiring of a child's brain. So when we say each experience, positive, negative, is like a signal that strengthens, weakens, or reinforces this synapses. Think of it like, it's like two roads diverging in a yellow wood, except a child's brain will always take the road most traveled by. Now, as a result, either the environment will alter the baby's brain architecture, or family members will do it on purpose. So either it happens on its own, or you guide it by shaping and influencing baby's environment to that end. Thus, this is not a construction process that can or should be outsourced. So you cannot actually outsource it, right? Nature has gone to great pains to signal its preference for parental guidance. This is a role that only parents can play. And biology really ensures that kind of bonding that parents hold, great powers in terms of brain development, in terms of ensuring that, simple acts like acts of love, like cuddling, soothing the child with voice, responding to his or her needs, and reading a simple act like reading a book may sound simple at the surface, but they're the stimulations that the baby's developing brain actually needs and builds upon most effectively. The more parents interact with and stimulate the baby, the more they increase his or her neurological cells. That increase in cells also leads to an increase in activity naturally. And it's easy to see how that promotes faster and more complicated patterns of thought. So if I compare this is like building highways and infrastructure for high traffic learning later. So today, if this infra is built later point of time, it's easier for the child to grasp things much faster in a much better way. Now, I was coming to the bonding aspect, the emotional aspect. Now, the impact of bonding between parents and child can't be overstated. The absence of secure bonding and nurturing not only deprives a child of the brain stimulation which he actually needs to thrive, but can also cause serious neurological harm. So I was referring to an article written by Laurie Larson of American Academy of Pediatrics, in which she points out a pivotal study on maternal touch. Babies who are not fondled or touched by parents can actually die from lack of physical contact. When that secure bonding is present, the impact is huge. Like the research paper goes on to say that the impact is as much as influencing a child's IQ by 20 to 40%. So children who are deprived of parental touch vis-a-vis children who get that kind of affection, cuddling, that impact in terms of IQ goes as high as up to 20 to 40%, which is huge. Another important thing that I was going through, American psychologist Florence Goodenough, revered for her work in child psychology, a lot of good work. Again, she also suggested that environmental factors, including complicated language, accounted for between 20 to 40% of a person's intelligence score. So, which she took to be a measure of cognitive development. So, 20 to 40%, I guess, is actually a difference between an average and a very high achieving individual. And today, if we step back and we conclude that the difference between someone who is an average performer and someone who is really doing very well for himself or herself is because of active parenting, that really makes us understand the importance of these formative years and a huge role that parents have in this regard. Babies are actually hardwired to learn. They're like tiny scientists discovering the world through their own ways, through family experiments. Every child is actually born with that kind of curiosity. Renowned educator Maria Montessori, in fact, labeled this very well. She used a term called an inner teacher. Montessori believed that children do not need formal education to learn, at least in formative years, learn much of the important social, emotional, and intellectual behavior experience in their early years. They're naturally driven. According to her, they are naturally driven to explore. What children do need, she argued, is an environment rich with the toys and tools that help them master the progression of skills necessary to build confidence and competence. So we have been discussing about these two words in every session, confidence and competence, which leads to good self-esteem and ultimately academic success. A child learns by testing himself or herself against her environment. The very act of venturing out beyond her reach and making discoveries about how the world looks, how the world feels, tastes, actually this stimulates the baby's neurons, which in turn adds to the connection. Now, if she can look back and see or call for parents, she experiences emotional stability. So when a child actually looks for his or her parents and she knows that they are available, it actually gives emotional stability, solidifying intellectual, physical, and emotional progress made in each foray. So the secure feeling that comes from strong bonding actually lowers anxiety, leading to strong central core, which is necessary for emotional maturity. So that is the reason we all know that a child will learn more at his or her mother's knee than anywhere else in the world, at least at that stage of life. So when a child actually learns to trust his or her parents, she actually learns to trust herself. At no other point in child's life will a parent's presence be such invaluable gift as these years. Even research has proved that up to 3 years of age, until 3 years of age, babies actually see their parents as a physical extension of themselves. He does not yet understand that the two of them are separate up to 3 years of age. And so naturally, just as parents would be terrified if the child were kidnapped or torn like from their arms by a stranger, babies also experience separation anxiety every time the two are apart. So this separation anxiety is very harmful, actually. It leads to potent stress hormones, specifically a hormone called cortisol, which affects other critical functions of the body, and which, if overproduced, can have disastrous effect on its development. Psychologist Daniel Goleman explains that this particular cholesterol that we are referring to, cortisol, this actually impairs a lot of very important body functions and leads to a state of mind where the child is continuously in a fight or flight mode. A state of continuous anxiety, a state of being alert, not good for the child. So according to a 2001 study, which was published in Development and Psychopathology and cited in the journal Neurosciences Behavior, a child's cortisol level measurably increase the longer a parent is away from him or her. So you can imagine, leads to a lot of negative effects: emotional health, digestion, even the child's immune system tends to get affected. And babysitters, nannies are not equipped to understand the development needs of a child, and thus can't deliberately or attentively guide the transition from one stage to other, at least in most cases. So that is one aspect. Another very important aspect is there's a lot of debate on this, especially today. If you see with working parents, if you see parents who are very busy, very successful in their own careers, at many point of time they tend to think that what is more important for the child? Is it time or is it money? And many of us believe like that, more money means creating more opportunity for the child in future, and that quality time is a necessary casualty in the rat race to buy a child more things like say better school, memberships, opportunities to succeed. Now there was a study which was conducted by PISA in 2009, Program for International Students Assessment, PISA 2009, which clearly indicates that this is a cultural myth. According to PISA findings, parents' socioeconomic status accounts for only 10% of the variance in a child's academic success. So if you look at a child's academic success, they say parent socioeconomic status can affect it only up to 10%. There was a similar research which was conducted in England in 1984. In 1984 by Sarah Basilis, and her team set out to determine whether the parent involvement program was able to close the gap in education between third graders from poor working class families and their wealthier upper middle class counterparts. So this comparison was done, and they found out that students from poor working class families whose parents were more involved, gave more time and supported those children, actually outperformed those pupils from wealthier families. Even those who were given private tutoring by professionals, they could not compete with these children as they were more emotionally secure and stable. The only variable in this study was that children from poorer families were getting more emotional support because their parents are more involved, they have more time in the daily activities. So I told you about the PISA survey, I told you about what happened in UK. Similarly, United States, US, a similar study was conducted by Dr. Burton White. And the study conducted a 3 years, this was actually a 3-year study, and the name of the study was called Missouri Project, which involved 300 families. So that was the entire sample size, 300 families, and demonstrated that when parents are taught about child development, including how to structure discipline without suppressing natural curiosity and impulse to explore, children thrive. So parents who actually participated in that study, parents who actually got that training. So ultimately, it was seen that students whose parents actually, participated in the study reached higher than average levels of aptitude in linguistic and cognitive ability. So thus, it is more than proved that, and from that, this Missouri Project came up with a terminology, very famous terminology. Wherever we study about this formative years, this terminology comes in. And there was entire funding also done with regard to this. Entire stakeholders from various sections of the society joined their hands. And this terminology is known as PAT, Parents as Teachers, to teach parents how to actively be involved in their child's early education. And this program became so successful that it has now both national and international affiliates. So that was one thing with regard to what is being done. Another very interesting development in this regard, Professor of Education Lowell Medal, reporting on the remediation of poor readers in elementary school, stated that parents who were taught how to interact. Now, this professor, what he did is he taught some parents. He actually got some parents and he actually taught them how to interact with children by reading, in their own home over a 6 to 8 week period. And it was seen that this actually improved children's performance in comprehension by at least 6 times the normal rate. Even more stunning, researchers today believe that 85% of children in US labeled educable but mentally challenged could have attained average intelligence had they received sufficient stimulation in families where they come from. If families would have been more involved, 85% of children who are labeled as mentally challenged would have done far better. So that is the importance of parental involvement in formative years. So these things clearly goes on to prove, right? And the two very important aspects I quickly like to point out before I end my deliberation. One is the importance of friendship in formative years. Childhood friendship. Friendship actually contributes significantly to development of social skill. Paul Squires, a professor of psychology and child behavior expert, has been writing a lot of research papers in this particular topic. And according to him, more than half the children referred for emotional behavior problems. So children around the world who are being referred as emotionally unstable with problems, the root cause is that they have no friends or they find difficulty interacting with peers. So friends have a very powerful influence on child's positive and negative school performance and may also help to encourage or discourage deviant behaviors. So that is one part. Another last thing, I think it's really, each child is unique. Each child is unique. At home also very often we see siblings growing up together, but very different characteristics. So it's very important for parents to acknowledge this and respect a child's personality and uniqueness without comparing them. So there may be some children who are very outgoing, a lot of friends. Others may not need so many friends. Others may be they like to keep it to themselves. So it's important to celebrate and support a child's personality and needs, so that he or she feels more emotionally secure. So I think these are a few things that I wanted to deliver on with regard to formative years. We have a great panel today, and I really look forward to the deliberation on this very important topic. I thank all of you for giving me a patient hearing. Over to you, Shubhayu.
Thank you, Achin. Thank you for that wonderful presentation. Well, ladies and gentlemen, as Achin mentioned, we do have a stellar panel lined up for you today. Before we go on to the panel discussion, just a couple of minutes to tell you about Notebook. We at Notebook are an edtech organization. We make short videos pertaining to the school syllabus. These videos come in handy in two places. One, where you as teachers can use them either before or during your classes. May the classes be offline or online, these videos can be used to help your students get a more visual perspective of the topic to follow. Second, the students have access to the same videos from home on their personal devices, be it a laptop, a smartphone, whatever they have access to, they can have access to these videos. What this means is they can use these videos for revision and get reminded of what you taught in class that particular day. Since we're talking about the formative years, I'm going to play a short snippet of a class 2 video called Footprints.
We can also draw a car with squares, rectangles and circles. Look, one big rectangle and one small rectangle for the body of the car, two squares for the window and two circles for the wheel. Hooray! Our car is ready. Let us now try to draw traffic signal with circles and rectangles. We need two rectangles and three circles to make a traffic signal. Isn't that easy? Little Dia loves drawing. Look, she has drawn a robo using different shapes. That's truly incredible. Don't you think so? Now, look at the picture and tell how many triangles are there. Yes, you are right. 3. How many squares are there? Yes, you are right. 2. How many rectangles are there in the body of the robo? Yes, you are right. 12. How many circles are there? Yes, you are right. 8. Hope you had fun with shapes. See you in our next video.
Well, that was just a short snippet of one of the notebook videos. There are more than 10,000 such videos available on our website, www.notebook.school, should you choose to use them. Well, it is now time for me to introduce the fantastic panel that we have lined up for you today. We are privileged to have with us Chhaya Chaturvedi. She holds a BCom and an MA in English and a BEd degree. She has over 27 years of teaching experience, teaching all classes from 1 to 12. She is presently working as a principal of Bharati Krishna Vidya Vihar in Nagpur, an eminent CBSE affiliated school in the city. Ma'am, thank you so much for making the time and joining us here. We also have with us Dr. Piyush Gupta. He has more than 25 years of experience in the education field, including 10 years as the head of institution. He has worked with some of the most esteemed organizations like Bharatiya Vidya Bhavan, GEMS Education, and Birla Schools. At present, he is serving as the principal at Mount Litera Aziz School, Muzaffarnagar. He has been the recipient of Certificate of Honor as Best Principal of Muzaffarnagar in the Crystal Awards 2021 and Citation of Eminence in Principals Day Conclave for exemplary contribution to education and positive intervention to keep learning seamless during the pandemic period from Lifeology. He is a positive thinker, motivational speaker, and a lifelong learner and believes that knowledge shared is knowledge earned. Sir, thank you so much for making the time to be with us here today. We also have with us Mr. Pramod Mahajan, who holds an MSc in Physics and MA in Education, a BEd in Creativity, and an MBA in Training and Development. He is the principal and the school director at the Sharjah Indian School in Sharjah. He has been the principal and the head of institution for Samasti International School, Hyderabad, senior principal at GEMS Public School, principal at the Lodha World School, Palava in Mumbai, principal at Podar International School, Kalyan, principal at Arya Cambridge International School, Thane, vice principal at Birla School, Mumbai, and the principal head of institution since 2005. His experience in CBSE schools as principal spans 16 years, and his total teaching experience has been over 34 years now. He is a core member of Community Volunteers team, including Wing, Office of Consul General CGI India, Dubai, UAE. Core member of Working Group of Education Wing of the Office of Ambassador, the Embassy of India, Abu Dhabi, UAE. One of the Board of Directors of Principals Council of Sharjah Private Education Authority, Government of Sharjah, and a core member and former secretary of the Principals Executive Council of Sharjah Private Education Authority, Government of Sharjah. He has received a host of eminent awards. To name the most celebrated ones, he was awarded with the citation Fabulous Global Educational Leader during the 8th edition of the World Education Congress. He was invited as one of the global education leaders, being the only one from UAE to attend the World Education Leadership Symposium held at the University of Zurich, and he was awarded the title of Education Entrepreneur of the Year at the House of Commons in the British Parliament. Sir, it is indeed our privilege and pleasure to host you here today. Thank you so much for making the time. I will stop the share and start my video now so that we can all see each other and start the discussion. Once again, thank you so much for being here. It's an absolute privilege to play host to all of you. Mr. Mahajan, Madam Chaturvedi, and Dr. Gupta, if you could please switch on your cameras and unmute yourselves. Thank you so much. It is indeed a privilege to play host to each and every one of you. Mr. Mahajan, if I may come to you first with my first question. The way we'll do this is I will throw questions, but we'll keep this discussion free-flowing. Anytime any of you have anything to add or you want to jump into the discussion, sir, what according to you are the key skills a student must pick up in the formative years?
Yeah. Good evening.
Good evening,
Assalamu alaikum. Namaste. Namaskaram. Yes, the formative year. Somebody has very rightly said that teaching in formative years is not just filling the empty vessel, but kindling the fire. As far as the skills are concerned, Mr. Philip and Achin has given a lot of perspective. But as far as the skills are concerned, see, there are particularly 3 skills which in the formative year the tiny tots should adopt. The first one is the cognitive skills. Now, in the cognitive skills, which deals with the neuroscience, the flow of the neurons, brainy activities, these are all related to the what we can say scholastic and more towards the academic activities. Now, in these formative years, if you're directly starting them with those aspects, that will create a permanent damage. And that is happening. And that is happening worldwide. Knowingly or unknowingly, what we are doing them, as and when the baby start speaking little bit, we are forcing that baby to learn Johnny, Johnny, yes, Papa, eating sugar, no, Papa. The baby doesn't know who is Johnny, what is sugar, and how to laugh. So, what sort of skill should be there? The skill is minimum intervention. Don't disturb the child. Let the child explore by his own experience. Limitless. But yes, one adult should be there to guide, to take care of the child. They wanted to play with the fire. Let them go closer to the fire and let them experience that what the hotness is. What is the degree of hotness is. Then that sort of learning will retain throughout their life. Let them play with the clay, with the water, with the sand. Let them give a push in the wall. Let them jump. Let them dance. But what we are doing now, whether it is active parenting or parental bossing, that's a question mark. What we are doing, we started, giving them the disciplined way. Sit like this, eat like this, don't throw this, don't do that thing. Then where that cognitive energy goes, then the cognitive energy will reflect in the form of they will punch everywhere, they will shout like anything, and then the parents are so-called psychologists. I'm using the word so-called psychologists or counselors. Now everyone is becoming psychologist and counselor nowadays. We'll say the child is hyperactive. See, it's become a fashion now, labeling the child is a hyperactive. Yeah, we are not channelizing the cognitive energy or the cognitive need and requirement of a child in a proper way. We are not providing them the space to run. We are not providing them to, to punch here and there. We are not providing them to water to pour at one place to another place. We are not allowing them to throw the food from here to there. We are not allowing them to scribble the fruits. And then we are asking about them, understand that thing, A for apple. Let them throw that apple into somewhere, wherever they want. Let them cut that apple. Let them bite that apple in such a manner they will understand what the color of the apple is, what the shape of the apple is, how to eat that, how soft it is, how hard it is. So that deals with their cognitive skills. Now, in that cognitive skills, we are forcing them 1, 2, 3, 4, up to 10. Carry on. They don't understand what is 1, what is 2, what is 0, and why 1 is a standing line and then one sleeping line is there. They just don't understand that thing. Whatever color you say, this is a yellow color, they will say, yes, yes, everything is yellow. And sometimes, that linkage, what they see, what they listen, and what we force them to say, if that linkage created a gap, that will be a permanent damage in the brain, and then you cannot repair it throughout the life. So cognitive losses, rather than instead of cognitive skills, we are creating. So it's my humble request to the parents, whether it is a nuclear family, whether it is whether the dada, dadi, nana, nani, chacha, chachi is there or not, spend a quality time with them. Allow them to run. Allow them to throw whatever they want to throw. Allow them to play with the utensils. That sound will make them happy. And then they will understand the saregama of the music. And trust me, believe me, that understanding of the music will create the rhythm in their walking, rhythm in their understanding, rhythm there in their academic aspect, rhythm in understanding the relationship, rhythm to differentiate good touch and bad touch. So that is the cognitive skills. Parent has to play a vital role. Mother has to play a vital role. More than that, the teachers, the KG1 teachers, they have to play a much more than that. Because as and when the child comes to the school, everything is different. He or she in a magical world, everything is lost. Mother is not there, father is not there, that homely atmosphere is not there. Coming to the school in the confined, sitting on the table or chair or whatever be, new friends, new students, new everything new. And in that you are asking them, sit like this, stand like this, go in a queue, washroom etiquettes. The cognitive skill starts from there. You are asking them to stand in a queue, then go, wait your turn, what you require. See, all those disciplinary aspects are good. But when they have experienced it, when they have understood it, so for that, what is required is experience, minimum intervention, let them explore, monitor them, guide them, don't teach them. Don't teach them at all. Teaching at this stage, creating the permanent damage. I'm using very harsh word, permanent damage. Yes, it happens. It happens. And the a lot of researches has proved that thing. And then a lot of neurological medicine and this and that, and then the side effects and all those things happen. Second thing is their affective domain. Affective domain deals with heart. The first domain deals with head, affective domain deals with heart. Now, when we are dealing with a child, that empathy, that motivation, that loving and caring aspect should be understood properly by the child. And to make the child understood that loving and caring aspect, your body gesture, your body language, your facial expression should be in that manner. In that case, if you are telling sit down, don't stand, finish, that day has gone completely. Because with that harsh sound, the flow of the neuron get accelerated, and it's become a volatile flow instead of the streamline flow. And when the neurons flow become volatile, things have gone. I'm not saying ki shouting or that sort of things is wrong, but there is a time. Do with that with the adult, do with that with the senior secondary students. When they are going wrong, they will understand it, they will remember it. But at this age, then everything is gone. After that, what that child will understand and what that child will do, no one can understand that. So that caring and loving aspect, for that the teacher, the mother, they have to play a vital role. Whatever we can understand nowadays, there are worry, there are anxiety, there are stress, but for these children, for such type of age group students, one has to keep them laughing, and for that you have to laugh. If you have to ensure the smiling dynamics on the faces of those students, you have to smile. And nowadays it is very difficult. Nowadays it is very difficult. But understand one thing, that hybridized smiling will not work in those years, because they understand why, in what situation the father is smiling. He is hungry, shouting on the mother, and when the small child is come, he started smiling. It will not work. So that natural concept, that is called loving and caring. So that deals with their affective domain. Then next one is the psychomotor skills. So fine psychomotor skill and gross psychomotor skill. Fine psychomotor skill allow them to break their toys. But we are telling them this toy cost 2000 rupees. Handle with care. What handle with care? He has to understand the fine motor skills. He will throw that thing. He will trust it. He will break it. He will twist it. Yeah. And that breaking, twisting, fondling with that, repairing it, understanding it will enhance the fine motor skills. So those fine motor skills are important, but that is possible again with the experience. And what sort of experience? Yes, being a physics student, I may say destructive experience, no problem at all. Let them deform those, whatever with the gadgets given to them. Enjoy that thing. That enjoyment will make them the super duper engineers of future. That enjoyment will make them the super duper architecture of the future. That enjoyment will give them that power which a surgeon is required. But what we are doing, this is costing this much, handle with care, see the mobile should be like that. So that is not possible. When they are painting, let them throw the colors here and there, but we do take care of the bed sheet, we do take care of that they should not spoil the walls, we do take care of that thing. So if you are taking care of the walls and the bed sheet, then to whom you are loving and caring? Are you loving and caring your tiny thoughts, or you are loving and caring those physical aspects? So that is there. Another one is uh, gross motor skills. For the gross motor skills, mother, father, and the KG teachers, they have to dance with them, they have to run with them, they have to do the exercise with them, they have to do the yoga with them, they have to eat with them, they have to cry with them, they have to sing with them. All those activities deals with their gross motor skills. Are we doing that thing? If not, whoever be, whether it is a mother, whether it is a father, whether it is a teacher, whether it is the head of the institution, let them do that thing. I have my experience that whenever I took rounds, let me tell you, we have 3,232 students in our KG sections. So whenever I am going through that, sometimes I am surprised. He is our principal, Mr. Pramod Mahajan. Oh, this much learning in KG1. What sort of damage you are creating? Let them feel that, yeah, this uncle comes every day. So see that natural understanding. He is someone who is guiding my teacher. That is enough. But within 15 days, they start saying, our principal's name is this, our principal is this, our principal. Why that sort of? And from that day, the mugging up and omitting in the examination, that fundamental starts. If you have to break that thing, let them understand. They will understand. He, the person who is coming, discussing with the teacher, arranging something, helping us, they will understand, and then they will define that thing. The principal or the head of the institution or the teacher is the name of that element who take care of us, who help us, who teach us, who guide us. They are very close to the nannies and the bus conductors. Why? There is a telepathy between them, because they understand their body language. They are sometimes they are strict with them also. They understand their language because they deal with that. They take care of that. So that is the another aspect. So in the beginning, opening comments, these three skills in that different way, I have deliberately made it very down to the earth with the ground realities instead of quoting these different scientists and this and that. But the ground reality is this. In that manner, if those three skills are properly given to them, or allowed them to experience themselves, allowed them to explore themselves with the minimum intervention, believe me, that child will be a super child. Thank you.
Wonderful, sir. Thank you. Thank you so much for that very refreshing take on it. In fact, when you're talking about destroying toys, I really hope that I had asked my father to join this webinar, because I have been spanked around for breaking enough number of toys. Chayama, if I may come to you next.
Yeah.
The key skills that a child must have in the formative years. Ma'am, you'll have to unmute yourself. Ma'am, you'll have to unmute
Ma'am,
yourself.
unmute yourself, please.
Thank you. Mr. Mahajan, you have included all my entire points. And the way you were speaking, actually, our generation, we have faced the same thing. Pheko mat saman, like learning, the rote learning. My name is this, I live in, I remembered, and I felt nostalgic. I went away to my primary section, that how I have also learned the same way that you were talking about. I agree with you, though we shouldn't teach them. They automatically learn the things. I agree with you, totally agree with you. And since NEP, coming NEP is also focusing on this formative years, I have started changing my curriculum of pre-primary section. Being the head of the pre-primary to high school, I'm taking care of the curriculum. So I also took this point into my notification that the children should not be taught. Let them learn. Learning is more important than teaching. And let them experience the things. I agree with you that breaking the things, assembling those broken toys, automatically the child will learn to assemble to create something new, and that will really help him out to come. And moreover, your suggestion that let the child draw the things and spill the colors, we are worried about the bed sheet. I remember me too as a mother was worried about my bed sheet and colors, but as a teacher now I also changed a lot. I've created one wall where the children can color the things. They can spill color, they can draw, they can scribble. And nursery classes, when the children join the class, I stick the plain paper on the table where they are given crayons. Color the whatever you want to draw, automatically they are creating. And the way you told that the colors let him learn the things, I remember when I was teaching in a pre-primary section, one of the child drew elephant of blue color. So as a teacher, I went to my principal that he has colored, and my principal where I was teaching, she was also very expert in playway methods, teaching through playway method. I told the child has drew the elephant in the blue color. Shall I give him A grade, A plus? She gave him his color, his concept of elephant is blue. You cannot change right now. Automatically we learn that the gray elephants are of gray color. So Pramod sir, basically whatever I have written to tell, almost every point you have covered it. So thank you.
Thank you so much, ma'am. I agree. After Mr. Mahajan's explanation,
Right.
That's a difficult act to follow. Which means when I come to Dr. Gupta next,
everything.
when I come to Dr. Gupta next, he'll have a bigger complaint now. Dr. Gupta, it's your turn.
We have all of the speakers, but I want to add one more thing to this.
Please, sir.
Actually, we should stop, means our parents especially, and definitely somewhere down the line, teachers also do the same thing. We should stop using our children as our property or a demo kind of thing. Like मैंने ये अरमानी का सूट खरीदा है तो मैं सबको दिखाऊंगा this अरमानी सूट. Same way we demonstrate our child in entire society. A child is of 1 year, he don't know how to speak even, but his mother, while giving him bath, put his finger on the nose. This is the nose, this is the eye, and when they are going in the society to meet their relatives, they demonstrate like, beta, tell where's the nose, and child touches the nose like this, and everyone is happy. Oh, he is very learned child. So means I am not able to understand till date when he will grow up, will he not be able to know where his nose is there? Or we are required to tell this thing at the age of 1 only? Like ma'am has told that my name is Piyush Gupta. I've been taught like that. So means when I will grow, will I not be able to know my name? Why is this? I have to mug up my name. Means somewhere we need to change our strategy. Means like ma'am has said that we are not required to teach them. We have to make them learn. We often complain that the child is not listening to me. Are we teaching? Means are we making an environment where they develop their listening skill? If we go back to means our times, our grandparents used to tell us stories, and we used to take a lot of interest in that. Are we telling them some stories? Are we giving the time to our children for that? In today's scenario, what I see is parenting means that you are an inspector of a child. You are a financer of a child, means you are financing for every need of a child, and after that you are inspecting for every work a child is doing. ऐसे बैठना है, ऐसे उठना है, ऐसे खाना है, ऐसे पीना है. Like the same thing teachers are doing. Whenever someone is coming to their class and want to know something about the class, they immediately they pick up the brightest child with a poem sunao. What means we are using our children as a property or a thing of demonstration, that we can demonstrate our skills through them. It should not be like that. Child should be given ample opportunities to learn. He should be given means through listening skill we can develop through stories. We can we need to be good listener first of all. Whenever child wants to say something, definitely they don't know how to put their things across to us. So they make a big story to tell a very small thing. And after few of their lines, we get frustrated. Okay, no, leave it. It's not, should not be like that. We need to be patient listener. We need to listen them first of all, what they want to say. When they complete, definitely wherever guidance is required, we can guide them. So unless until we listen to them properly, they will not be able to learn how to express themselves. So listening a skill, expressing a skill, communication, that all they learn through us only. And that we cannot teach. We need to give them environment to learn. Mr. Philip was telling that a child should be socializing. Definitely. Many times in the society, it happens a child is, when we are walking on the evening walk, and the neighbors, they tease a child like, we are coming to your house, home for having a tea, and child says, nahi, हमारा दूध खत्म हो गया है, हमारी चाय पत्ती खत्म हो गई है. Because they don't want to, means they feel like that if they will come to our house, they will finish all the tea, they will finish all the sugar, they will finish all the milk, and then we will not be left with nothing. So here we need to guide them that if someone is coming to us, means sharing and caring is to be taught, and that they can learn only in their peer group. Some of the children, they have a tendency of not sharing their toys with other kids. Why is that so? Because as I told, because we have already told the child, ये 2000 रुपए का है, ये टूटना नहीं चाहिए, ये toy तोड़ना नहीं. So a child become conscious. Neither I will play, not I let others to play with the toy. And if we are putting aside this cost factor to them, and if we help them, if we guide them that you should share your toys with others, then definitely others, the children will also learn about it. And so sharing and caring, that socializing skill are very important. Otherwise, they will not be able to adjust with the peer group in future. And these skills are like a base. For example, means if I say, often in education field it is said that बच्चा तो एक मिट्टी होता है and a teacher is a potter who makes a beautiful pot out of it. But how much water is to be put into that sand is done in these years only. मिट्टी को प्रॉपर तरीके से जब तक मिट्टी का ढंग से नहीं गूंथी जाएगी तब तक ढंग से उसका पॉट नहीं बन पाए. For that formative years means preparation of that mud to create a pot. Pot will be done later on. But first of all, we need to prepare a child for that coming years. Unless until a child, because they cannot focus on what they're doing now. The mind is working here this time, and after few minutes, you will find that their mind is diverted to other things. A child does not learn from their conscious, whatever they are doing from conscious mind, they will forget. But what through learning is set in their subconscious mind will affect their learning in later stage. If child is not having listening skills initially, how will he understand skills when he will grow up to classes 6, 7, 8 or like that? So those all the skills need to be developed at this stage only. And that motor skills and that all everyone knows that that has to develop. Then comes the behavior. Here the role of a parent is more important than a teacher. Definitely teacher is also important. Whenever phone call is coming, we are telling the wife, okay, tell them I am not at home or I am sleeping, I have taken the pill. So what kind of values a child is learning? You're not teaching them directly, but indirectly they are learning the values, what we are through our action, what we are doing in our. If we are means sorry to say, because many people have different things in the family, because in today's time, if we see that the mother is means not using the good words for the grandparents of a child, what the child will learn? We need to be very conscious when how we are behaving in the with the child, how we are behaving in front of the child. I would say a teacher is late in a class by few minutes and principal is standing there. Okay, so and teacher make some excuse. I was late because of this. Child is observing everything. They are very, very keen observers. And that their observation only makes them learn. So that is very important. We need to give them ample opportunities. We need to be careful about our behavior when we are dealing with the child or when child is there. We need to be very careful. And while teaching stories, like in that one point was like that a parent of a child who is in preparatory years, formative years, is a younger one. They are not having a very big experience of life. Well, they have become a parent, but still they need to experience a lot. So, and they are not able to handle child in that way. So somewhere down the line, if at a school, we can arrange some workshop, parenting workshop for parents also, that will help. Or through story that will teach them, we can give some situations to the children through which we can make them understand the problem of the parents. I think means they will be able to understand the problem that parents face and things will be in better direction. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir. I think that last point you raised is particularly interesting because a very young child who's maybe 2 years, 3 years old, also has a parent who's not more than 30 years old, perhaps. And especially being the first child, like my mother has told me often, I'm the older child, I have a younger sister, that I was the rough work, my sister was the fair copy. So with such parents who are still kind of understanding the pastoral care of a young child, there seems to be this gap which the teachers have to fulfill. As you said, parenting workshops might help. Achaya ma'am, if I may come to you with this question, what is the advice that you give to such young parents who are parenting for the first time?
there's a big problem, like really that they differentiate even in the studies, even the complexion, even in the appearance, even in the writing, they do compare. But I mean to say, all the fingers are not equal of the hand, but even then it's a hand. They need to understand that every child is born with special quality. He or she must be having certain different qualities which need to be groomed. Color difference, you have given an example of a color, right? There's a complex difference in the complexion between two siblings, but there are difference in they do as a like teacher. I have come across many incidents where they do compare. They compare the studies, they compare their behavior, they compare many things, and somewhere this bring difference in two siblings. They started like differentiating. My mother loves so and so, and my father loves, or she's more adorable, or I am not. Somewhere the difference is created. The parents, the child is biological child of parents. Both the children are of their parent, the parent only. But there's a difference, and that difference they should understand. And that could be done by the arranging workshop for the parenting. We do that same thing for our pre-primary. We have a session for parents, how to groom the children and all, and that could help the parents to understand that there is a different, the child, every individual is different, and he is born with certain quality which has to be groomed and taken care of. And like creating difference, like discriminating, that would be bringing a gap between the two children also. Somewhere they start hating each other, they start comparing. That brings something like shows the difference, and that family bonding is not there then. And similarly in the school also it happens. Every time we are focusing on the brighter child, he will give the answer, he is going to monitor, but should be given to the everyone by roll number wise. Everyone should get a chance, everyone should be given a proper chance, because everyone has that potential. Unless and until we give them a chance to come up, a very good strong child is given as a monitor, that you monitor the class in the absence of the teacher. This has been a routine where we were also brought up in this way. But don't you think a child who is quiet, who is not outspoken, not coming out, he can also command? He should also be given a chance. He should also come out. He should be given the same equal chances like the other children. A child who is very good speaker, always it's that in assembly or in a competition, we select the child because we think that the child is bringing laurel to the school. But aren't we give the chance? We haven't given a second chance to a child to come up. Maybe he might be come up to the same level if we are giving a chance. Once he will be a failure, right? But second time, automatically we learn those things and he will come up to the required standard. We should give chance to the children. We should not, in the school also, I have seen the difference. So it should not be, and that will it depends upon the schooling and the guidance given by the authorities. That discrimination, even the parents compare the same thing. A teacher acha padhati, wo acha padhati. The comparison should be stopped, because that comparison, I believe with the sir, keep giving excuses, children learn. We are hypocrites. We are really preaching. Whatever we are preaching, we are not doing in real life. Just like I believe I agree with the sir that he told, teacher coming late to school giving excuses. This is a common example he is given to understand the concept. Really, that is the thing. We are only giving excuses, and we expect the other opposite from the children, that they should not. So somewhere we need to, we first have to improve. We should change to bring a change. Thank you.
Wonderful, ma'am. I think we touched upon that very interesting topic of discrimination, but just to clarify, what I was referring to was, I am the first child. My sister is the second child.
Right.
So I was the rough work that you do for maths in the margin. The final stuff was what my teacher was. It was not a reference to complexion, but I think that was a brilliant piece of discrimination bit that we brought out. Mr. Mahajan, if I may come to you next.
My child, my daughter and son, both are, one is very good in maths and one is she doesn't do the maths. And the class teacher say, see your brother doing the things so well. So somewhere the difference is there. We only create the difference as an elder.
Wonderful. One right brain, one left brain. Mr. Mahajan, if I may come to you with the same question about
there is some issue with the audio.
Sir, can you hear me clearly?
You are audible.
I think something went wrong with the Zoom side.
Sir, we can hear you clearly.
Now it's fine. Now it's fine. Yeah.
Right. Sir, if I may come to you with the same question, Mr. Mahajan, about parents.
So, First of all, this rough work and fair work, let me tell you, girls are always the fair work. So that blame always goes to the boys that they are the rough work, whether it is elder or younger. So that is always there. Another thing is, the first child, the pastoral care, the first child, if it is a son, mother find out father within that child. If it is a girl, father will find out his wife within that girl. That thing should be stopped. If that is stopped, that child will have his unique feature and his unique characteristics. But if we started finding out father or mother within them, then I remembered the Rabindranath Tagore's that quote, don't teach a child because as per your time, because he has born in another time. So don't find out that thing. That is one thing. Second thing is, as Dr. Piyush has quoted that thing, why to show the teeth? Yes, but those habits has to be developed from the parent only, and particularly in case of first child. So when you are brushing, you show him how you are brushing the teeth. Don't teach. If you teach, then there will be a problem. Then the child will not brush it properly. So the pastoral care is what? You brush the teeth properly the way it has to be done in front of the child. The child will imitate you, copy you. Just you have to do the modeling in front of the child. Whether it is acting or whether it is stage show, whatever be, you have to do the modeling for some time. That will be a great help to the child as far as the habit formation is there. Second thing is, within these children, you see, everything, whatever we say, this corona and this pandemic has proved that thing. Nature has its own rule. The supreme power, the God, the Allah, has its own rule. He has created different type of telepathies. These young couples, they deliberately, sometimes knowingly or unknowingly, criticize their grandparent of that child. If they do that thing, it will be very, very harmful for the relation of that child with the mother or with the father. Believe me, if anyone is doing that thing, that will cause a very dangerous effect. I am not telling that thing because I am a grandfather, or I'm not telling from that point of view. I'm telling from
That's
that
true, sir.
point of
That's true. That's very true.
yeah, that telepathy, the science is fail, the neuroscience is fail in that telepathy. So that telepathy, similar type of telepathy is there between a child and a teacher. So Madam Chaya has very rightly said, don't discuss the teacher in front of the child. If you start discussing the teacher, or if you start criticizing the teacher, or if the mother started saying what she is teaching, I can teach better than this teacher, forget, learning will not happen. Learning is not a simple thing. Learning is very complicated thing, and as a teacher, as an educator, as a principal, or as a head of the institution, we don't have any magical stick that will rotate and the learning will happen. No, nothing like that. It's very complicated thing. So the pastoral care is what the parent has to understand that thing. They should not discourage or they should not criticize the grandparent of the child. Similarly, they should not criticize the teachers in front of the, that is one thing. Second thing is habit formation. How to eat? Don't teach that child. You eat properly. You are sleeping and rolling the bread and the eating like that and seeing the TV, and then you are expecting the child should eat properly. Forget, those days were gone. Now this 21st century kids, they are master in imitating. They follow you step by step, micro to macro level. So that is there. Your eye movement, how you speaks to your wife, means his mother or her mother, that all things were copied. So that is the habit formation, that is the behavioral aspect. Respect, sympathy, and empathy. Now both are working. The someone is coming, some man is coming and helping them. How you are behaving? If you are always supervising, clean this utensils like this, don't eat that thing, keep that thing, instead of she will eat, throw that thing in the dustbin. From that stage, the empathy or the sympathy or the habit or that sort of concepts will be developed within the heart of that child. So those aspects should be stopped. And see, no one can teach that thing. Only their behavior will be reflected within that child. Yes, after some time, maybe when they will be in 9th standard or 10th standard, when they will be in the adolescent stage, they may differentiate. And that time, what they will differentiate then? They will conclude that my mother was absolutely wrong, my father was absolutely wrong, and then they will say this child's become enemy of ours, and then they will blame that this is the age of the storm. Nothing like that. Foundation, you have done that thing. I reminded 2-3 lines of a very good poem. कैसे हम इल्जाम लगाए वर्षा की बौछारों पर, क्यों हवा ने थी तस्वीर बनाई मिट्टी की दीवारों पर. If you are making the picture on the mud, it will be rubbed out. Then don't blame the rainy drops. You create that sort of platform and then make the picture. It will retain for a longer time. So parental care is very, very important. They should not criticize grandparents. They should not criticize teachers. Their behavior with others, how they are behaving with their elders, with their angers, with their servants, with their helpers, how they are wearing the cloth, brushing the teeth, eating food, whatever be, that will create the habit formation. After that, active parenting. Be active. Enjoy the blunders made by the child. We don't do that thing. I am a mathematician. I will say my child should be mathematician only. Gone. Everything is finished. Don't do that. That is called parental bossing. Come out of the comfort zone. I always tell to my parents also many times whenever they are coming to meet me, if my child is doing that thing, stop parental bossing, stop parental policing rather than moral policing. Play with them, cry with them, give them the shoulder to cry. Sometimes they do so many mistakes. Enjoy their blunders, but let them realize that there's something they have done wrong. Sometimes they abuse the friends, or sometimes they misbehave with the teachers also. And when the report has when it has been conveyed to the parents, either parents will blame the teachers or the parents will started blaming, or sometimes they will beat the child also. You should not do that thing, and you are stop that thing. Yes, slowly, steadily, make the child realize that she is your teacher. Teacher is just like your mother, second mother. So respect her as we are also respecting. The teacher has every right to shout on me also. If you say that one sentence, the child will become obedient child. So that sort of behavioral aspects are important at that first child level. Comparison and all, yes, you should stop comparing. Not only in case of children only, you should not compare yourself also. In front of the child, we compare them. See how smart I am looking, and see your friend's father. That comparison nowadays, that comparison is more because of a lot of such type of shows. Parents become alert that thing. We should not compare the children, but they started comparing themselves. See how your mother is very good looking. Your mother is good looking, so he will change the definition of the mother. Every mother is good looking. If that thing is there, then the child will celebrate every day and every year and every month as a Mother's Day. But if you say your mother is good looking, forget that. Then forget. Then whatever you teach them about the Mother's Day or Father's Day or the Grandparents' Day, forget. That will not happen. So these are some tips which I wanted to give to the those parents who are young enough and having their first kid. Now, difference between two kids earlier, that's a debate going on. A lot of pediatrician says that yes, 2 years or 3 years are enough, rather than they should have a companion, and that companion should not have an age gap. So all those debates are going on. But the thing is, if you treat well, if you behave well, again I'm using very harsh word, treat well. Yes, we are not treating the kids very well. We compare ourselves with other fathers. Mothers compare herself with other mothers and spoil the child's definition of mother and father. See that if we treat them well, whatever with the gap is, whatever with the second child is, the child will be well behaved. Yeah, if you are in stress, in anxiety, Why not share your failure stories sometimes? Nothing wrong in that. You will making your child strong. But don't say that thing. You see, we have suffered a lot. You should not. See, this statement spoils. Then what will happen? The child will think that expectation of my parents from me is beyond this. That should not be there. One should take care of that thing. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir. There's a question from Mamta Patnaik, and I'm going to venture to answer that on behalf of all three of you. The question is, teaching is needed or not? Ma'am, the one thing that we have established over the last 1.5 hours now is teaching is extremely valuable, extremely required, and absolutely important. I think we've established that very, very fairly.
Yeah.
Chayam, if I may come to you with my last question.
No.
I wish we could...
I wanted to add that thing. Teaching is must, but in which form? It's not in the form of a just like a police, not in the form of a just like a inspector, not in the form of a just like an instructor, in the form of a teacher, that teacher who is the second mother, and that mother who is the first teacher. That sort of teaching is most valuable. Other all sort of teachings is rubbish. Thank you.
Thank you so much for clarifying that.
Teaching should be much more like a facilitator of learning.
Yeah.
Teaching should be in a form that we need to be facilitator of learning.
Wonderful. Thank you, sir. Chayam, I'll just come to you with my last question. I wish we could discuss this longer, but because of paucity of time, we'll have to cut it short at some point. Ma'am, we have all just seen, and as both of them just said, teaching is so important. Teachers need to understand the young child, develop the early years. We are now in the second year where a whole batch of students have joined their first year in school from home. They have not interacted with their teachers face to face. Is this going to leave a couple of years or a couple of batches of students with a skill gap?
It depends upon the age group, a difference in the age group. If we talk about pre-primary section, they haven't seen the gate of the school also. At least from class 5, we have started with so few children have come. They haven't seen the gate of the school. We tried to reach them as a teacher, tried to reach to them by taking live classes and all. But somewhere there would be a little gap which need to be, but I believe that time is the biggest healer, and collaborative efforts of parents, teacher, and they are going to come to school. Everything will come to normal one day. Surely there is going, maybe next year itself. We cannot predict, but the gap is there for different age. For senior classes, children haven't attended any practicals, never have attended the class, virtual class. They have lived a virtual life. Entire year they were having virtual classes. So like what they used to do in the school as a physical, where teachers were there to help them out, to clear their doubts, to immediately give them the support. That gap will be there with the senior classes. Surely there will be. And for junior, like I'm talking about the toddlers and pre-primary classes where the children are pre-nursery classes, that gap can be abridged by collaborative efforts. And for middle school, where I'm talking about certain conceptual, like what physical school would have given, they are lacking in that. And that has to be abridged when everything comes to normal. Senior classes, they have really missed many things, which as I have been, I'm talking about as a teacher, that I have seen them, they were unable to do certain things, the concept were not properly clear. Even though we have tried all the school teachers, entire school fraternity, hats off to the teachers who have reached to the children, given 24/7 services to the children, calling them, giving them due to this pandemic. There is a little gap that can be, but I believe that can be abridged due to the digital world, due to learning. And now last year was a year when we were not prepared for it. It was something like unusual for us, something for children, even for learning. For teachers also, it was a tough time to learn something, going from this platform, Zoom platform, to Google, to this and that, to reach to the children, preparing videos, sending them notes and all, something different. But now everyone is prepared for the next year. They will try their level best to abridge those laws which we have done, which the children have faced this year. I believe that.
Thank you. Thank you so much, ma'am. Mr. Mahajan, if I may come to you, sir, with the same question. Do you see a skill gap?
Yeah. See, she is very correct. that we have 1,700 KG1 students who have not seen the gate of the school, but they identify their teachers.
Yes, yes, yes. True, true, true.
They identify very well their teacher.
Yes, that
And
I
to
agree,
my
sir, very well.
surprise, whatever we have planned face to face on e-learning platform, I'm not advocating e-learning platform, but they have learned beyond that. That is one thing very clear. They have learned beyond that. Like, let me cite one example. My KG teacher started the virtual tour. Now, about the UAE, the KG2 child knows each and everything, which was not planned in our face-to-face curriculum. You show them the highest tower, they started saying about the Burj Khalifa, the world's tallest tower, and on this many floors are there, 124th floor, which looks like that. Whatever, that's a wonder. So because of that virtual tours, they understand the world in a better way. Otherwise, we should have covered only Sharjah and Dubai and something face to face. But now they are understanding the complete UAE, complete Gulf. To our surprise, they were started talking about the history of the India also. Char Minar, this is that, Qutub Minar, everything. So that is the effect of that. One thing. Second thing is, see, you imagine, you close your eyes, and if your mothers call you, without identifying, without seeing her, you will identify that who is calling you, whoever be. So that similar effect is there. They are identifying the teachers, even the camera is switched off. No, today our teacher is not there, substitute teacher is there. So they are identifying that thing. So what I mean to say, these formative years are those years where the learning happens speedily. 85% brainy activities, 85% brain is completed. Remaining 15%, we will take another 13 years to sharpen them only. That's all. Understanding is happened. So they understood each and everything. So according to me, there is no learning loss, not at all. No doubt, face to face has its own importance. These technologies and all, no one can replace the teacher, and salute to the teachers. They have done really wonders. They have done really wonders, exploring the technology, exploring the machine, human touch, blended learning, flipped classroom, virtual tour, augmented reality, what not they have done. But they are the one who has ensured that there is no learning loss. This is for the formative years. You take the case of 11th and 12th standard. I am a data driven person. I always believe in data, and according to me, data speaks. Data speaks the truth. This is the age where the data is speaking truth. You see the result of IITs and NETs. It is far better than last 3 years. All the coaching classes were closed, schools were closed, tutors were not there. Students were doing independent learning. Students were doing research-based learning. Students were using the various videos created by like you others also on the platform. They were exploring that thing. They were doing project-based learning. They were doing research-based learning. They are doing independent learning, and that is the real learning. Nowadays, the days were gone when the teacher was sage on the stage or guide on the side. Now the teacher is actually not even the felicitator but the scaffolder. You have to go along with the child, and the child will reach to the destination. In our days, teachers were holding our hands and taking us to the destination. By the way, they have given us the proper destination, thanks to them. But now the teacher has to go along with the child, not holding the hand. So that is so. There is no learning loss, according to me. Assessment, we are thinking that assessment we could not assess. What to assess? The question is what to assess. Are you assessing the faults of the child? Then that is not the assessment. If you are assessing what the child has learned and giving them something beyond that, so your assessment is successful, and that can be done anyway. So there is no learning loss. They identify the teachers have done the wonders, and now with the help of the teachers, the school become the knowledge hub, the teachers become the scaffolder, the children become the independent learner. And because of the various platforms, notebook, you name many things, resources are available, and the students know that thing, what resource to be used at what time and how it has to be used. So I'm very happy that whatever with the disruption happening in future should not happen. But if it is happening, we are there ready to face everything. Let the schools are closed, but the schooling will go on. Learning will go on. Let everything quarantine. Learning will never be quarantined. It is because of the real corona warriors. Those are the teachers. They have done that wonder. So without that, nothing happened. One should not be unnecessary create the chaos. There are the ways. Yes, transformation happened, shifting happened. Schools instead of study center. I'm sorry extremely, but sometimes we make the school just like a study center. Now it's become knowledge hub. Now it's become a center where the experiential learning happens. Students in teach up, mugging up, cramming up, and omitting in the examination. They become now independent learner. They know what source has to be used, which resources has to be used. Now the teacher has to guide them from where they have to take up the resources, and they have to do that thing. So nothing happened, nothing much loss is there. Unnecessary, these are all political agendas that we are creating. This thing happened, that thing happened. Nothing happened. Nothing happened. Everything is well in place and going on well. Yes, the trouble which has faced by the teacher is great because of that transformation. Teachers are enjoying, parents are enjoying. They are not paying the fees, that is secondary thing. They should pay. So we can pay well the teachers. That is another aspect because they are not understanding, and it's a need of the time. Being the educator, we should create that sort of awareness that there is no learning loss. Your children are understanding, learning. Rather, there is a better way using that transformation is happening. As per the time, things has to be changed. So society is changing. Everything is changing. We are changing our mobile. We are changing our dressing sense. We are changing our hairstyle. Why not the teaching style should be changed? Why not the teaching technique should be changed? Why not? So that why not? That awareness should be there. So according to me, there is no loss at all. Rather than gain is there. But yes, face to face. Now there are ways. If you use Google, that Zoom break room, they are fighting in the Zoom break room. That fighting is happening. That shouting is happening. That hulla gulla masti is happening. But one has to adopt that thing. One has to use that thing, and one has to give that autonomy. Create the Zoom break room and don't enter into that room. Then see, and after that 10-15 minutes, ask them the question. Then you will get the right answer if you ask the proper question. Now that questioning skill you have to develop. Now teachers develop the questioning skill properly because of this pandemic. So there is no loss according to me.
Wonderful, sir.
They have done group studies also. They have
Yeah,
sat
yeah, yeah.
together and
Yes,
they have
yes,
studied
yes.
and they have exchanged the questions.
Yes,
And
yes.
I agree with you, sir. Teachers have done a great, vital, played a
Only teacher.
significant
It
role
is
here
because of only
because,
teacher, not because of the principals or vice principals or the supervisors.
no, not
It
at
is
all.
because of the
How to
teachers.
reach student, what method, and moreover, they have brought the group closer to each other because immediately the method adopted was shared by others. This worked out. And we can have this method. So
Yes.
there was like unity, all came together to reach the children. And really they have
Yeah. Equity,
telephonic
uniformity,
call, WhatsApp group,
by default is
whatnot,
being
they have
developed.
tried.
Yes.
And without
we
any external support, all the teachers have done without any support from anywhere.
Yes.
They have done
Right, sir.
everything of their own.
Because they get self-motivated.
Yeah.
Survival was the challenge for them. If you have to survive tomorrow, you have to use the Google Classroom. See, that was threatening from our side. And sometimes I become sleepless when I remember that time when I told to my teachers, tomorrow you have to use Google Classroom. And I spent 36 hours to understand how to use the Google Classroom.
First we have to then.
So it's like that.
Even parenting has improved during this time.
What, sir? What?
I am saying that even parenting has improved during this time.
Yes.
A lot, completely changed. They become real friends now. They
Yeah.
understood what the parenting is.
And when we are
And
talking about
thanks to these webinars, this
Yeah.
webinar has played the vital role.
Yeah.
And because of that, I am every time ready for any webinar person is calling. I will speak or I will attend. I have made it my lifestyle. We have to attend because these are the things where we can really understand what is happening in the world. Otherwise, we'll remain like that. वो कहते हैं ना कुएं का मेंढक उसमें ही बस रहता है like that only.
As I said earlier, this is our 98th episode. And if
Yes.
there is one thing that we have learned over 98 episodes, is the kind of work teachers have done in enabling learning during this difficult period is phenomenal. I don't think any other industry, any other group of people ever have had to completely transform their style of working that has been developed over decades overnight. And they've done it so well. Seriously, sir. I join you in taking my hat off to every single teacher out there.
Yes.
Well, those are all the questions that I had. Dr. Gupta, you had something to share. If you would want to, we can do that now.
Only thing is, means there's no gap of skill development. There's only shift of skill development, I must say. Because if you see that real use of mobile phones, children has learned during this pandemic. Not only the smaller one, the elder one also. Now you can see that most of the students are on YouTube. Now students are searching about videos of their topics. Earlier they used to search about nonsense videos only. But now they are searching the actual use of this. So shifting of skill I can accept, but lack of skill I cannot accept. Gap of skill is
Prior Corona, they were the addict of the mobiles. Now they become user of the mobiles. And sir has very rightly said. Now no one is doing any vulgarity on the YouTube. Only academic aspects are going on because no one is doing the moral polishing. Those days, someone on the YouTube means we will suspect he will be saying something wrong. Now they are not even touching to that. They are all are only related to their studies and all. So this self discipline, self motivation, self discipline is developed, and that is unique.
Brought us some few good things also in learning aspects.
Wonderful, sir. First of all, thank you all. Thank you all so much for this discussion. I wish we could go on and on, but we have already overstepped our time limits. This has been a tremendous learning experience for me personally, and I hope you have enjoyed this discussion as much as I have.
Definitely.
There's quite a bit to thank for. So I would now hand this over to Achin for the vote of thanks. Achin, over to you.
So I think really a wonderful session we had, a very seamless and great exchange of ideas. And the best part of it was, different perspectives with regard to the topic. Completely different perspectives, looking at it from different angles. I think very, very enriching. Bharat sir, thank you so much for giving us a great start and also for sharing your own experience with regard to your formative years. And some great examples you shared, sir, really give us a flying start. Thank you so much for that.
Thank you, Achin.
Thank you, sir. Dr. Gupta, I sincerely thank you. Some great points you made, sir. I completely agree with you with regard to your emphasis on listening skills. Then with regard to sharing and caring, I think very, very important aspect, and especially peer group learning. Peer group learning is something which is really very important, very effective, and skills like socializing skills. And also, I think you focused on, and you also mentioned something which is really important, that how parents and elders, parents, teachers, etc., behave in front of a child, and how deep the impact is. At times, we don't even realize that what kind of impact, be it positive or negative, but the impact is really deep. And that gets ingrained in a child. So I think some great relevant examples, whether that be for teachers, say, for example, coming late to the class, or parents discussing about grandparents in front of the child, and sometimes some negative comment, and that is deeply ingrained, unintended negative consequences. So I think great points you highlighted. Thank you so much for your time and for highlighting these aspects.
Welcome, sir. Welcome, sir.
Chaya ma'am, I thank you sincerely for your time. And I think, you explained it very beautifully when you said that comparison, whether that be comparison by parents with regard to their children, maybe in terms of their studies, their behavior, or maybe comparison at school. I think this is something which should be completely avoided. And yes, I completely agree with you that every child deserves a chance. And I'm sure everyone here in this platform would agree with you, ma'am, on that. We have seen so many examples of children who have not been able to do academically good in school, but later point of time, very, very successful in their careers in different aspects of life. Thus, when a child fails to achieve intended academic outcome, I think more than the child, the entire system fails. Hence, we all agree with you that every child deserves a chance. And maybe even if he or she doesn't do that well, I'm sure there's always a scope for improvement. So I think, and also the fact that teachers, as you rightly mentioned, 24/7 service, especially during this period that we have been seeing during last 1.5 years, undoubtedly, at Notebook, we always keep on discussing this. Even Shuai was mentioning our salute to teachers, to educators across India for selfless service and the way they have stood up to this, and in spite of the fact that schools are closed, but schooling has always been on. Mr. Mahajan, sir, some great points you highlighted. I think and very thoughtful. I was listening very carefully to your deliberation. Instead of teaching, it's really important to do it ourselves and let the child imitate. So modeling, I think very rightly mentioned, and that appropriate example of Tagore. Yeah, I do remember one of his very famous quotes: "Don't limit a child to your own learning, for he was born in another time." I think very, very appropriate. And some other great aspects also you highlighted, be it in terms of behavioral aspect, respect, sympathy, empathy. Undoubtedly, these terms do not require any further deliberation. We would all agree that these are very, very important. So I think we really had a great discussion. And if I sum it up, undoubtedly, this makes all of us adults in our different roles, be it as educators, as parents, as members of the family, it makes all of us feel so much responsible that what kind of impact our action at times, we may not be that conscious, but what kind of impact our action has on a child, how they imitate us, and later point of time, it may result in unintended consequences. So, two lines which very, very appropriately and beautifully captures this, written by, penned down by one of the legends. कागज के ये लिबास चिरागों के शहर में, कागज का ये लिबास चिरागों के शहर में, जरा संभल संभल कर चलो, तुम नशे में हो.
Yeah.
I think undoubtedly. Thank you, sir. So I think these are some points that, and I think great session. I thank members of the esteemed audience as well for your time. We look forward to your support in the days to come. Thank you, take care, and goodbye.
Gargi?